Over the past decade, the Frieze Art Fair in London's Regent's Park has become not just a fixture of the London Art Year, but of the global travelling circus of international galleries and collectors. Frieze has also travelled to New York and now, at the north end of Regent's Park, has another fair, Frieze Masters, which mixes everything from work by living artists to 7,000-year-old Chinese ducks. And these are the oldest things, I think, that are here as far as...
Well, unfortunately, we've discovered that there is another stone with something slightly older, but also we have the flints, which are earlier, they're 4th millennium.
How do you feel showing all this next
Exciting.
to, you know, Richard Avedon photographs and de Kooning paintings?
I think it's where we should be. I like the juxtaposition. I think it's very important.
I do too.
And I think this whole shows, it's exciting for us. It's something we've always wanted to do. So.
And it's a lot more elegant than most old master fairs, isn't it? You know, one of the great things here is that you can go from something that's millennia old to this sort of lump of gloop by the American artist Linda Benglis, who in the 1970s was a very naughty girl indeed. But we won't go into that now. And here's someone else who was a naughty girl all her life. Louise Bourgeois. They seem to not mind you touching, with these kind of alien egg-like forms, these wonderful breasts. But you know, there isn't a huge difference between what was going on in the pre-Christian era in different cultures and a lot of what artists do now. I mean, everything was contemporary once. You can find all sorts of things at Frieze Masters. Does anyone want a gargoyle that fell off the back of a cathedral? A whole stand devoted to Alberto Giacometti, which could almost be an exhibition in its own right. And it's just here for a few days. And if you don't want a whole Giacometti, you could just take the leg. That gallery there shows mostly oceanic art. Provenance unknown. And it's the jumps here, it's these incredible jumps. Suddenly you're going from oceanic art to a Bonnard, a painting from the 1930s. Actually, it's undated. And this tremendous Romney, it doesn't matter that it's almost 300 years old. I mean, the whites in that are tremendous, and this great... And there she is next to a carball that's 12th century or something. What is strange is to find on the same stand as Romney paintings by the Letchworth-born abstract painter Richard Smith, pictures from the 1960s. Actually, they don't hold up well against George Romney. The 17th century wins in this case. One of the important things about Frieze Masters is a series of booths that galleries put on just of solo exhibitions, mostly of artists who are either forgotten, dismissed, or marginal because they come from places where you wouldn't necessarily know about what's going on. There's something very strange about Robert Graham. Here he is, what seems to be fondling someone's leg, don't know if it's a man or a woman's, and he's got skewers in his eyes. He's a little bit like Tom Wesselman. He's a little bit like Paul Tech. He's like a few other artists I know, but he's very strange and very original. This one's good too. So they're kissing, and there's a sort of heart above their heads. But what's this thing here? Perhaps we don't really want to ask what that is. Seems to have come down from his pants. And there's a bit of a bulge there. What can it mean? Birgit Jørgensen, a Viennese artist, died at the age of 54 in 2003. This is called Churchill's Wife. But that's not a cigar, is it? You can spend hours in here wandering around, discovering stuff, and it's extremely civilized at Frieze Masters. The difference between Frieze Masters and Frieze London, the rebranded regular Frieze Art Fair, is incredible. This is calm, well lit, not too crowded. Frieze London is a zoo. Grisdale Arts is up I think in the Lake District, and we're going to be looking at a farm shop and some kind of performance. And it's one of the projects of Frieze, one of the commissioned projects. The members of the public get to throw tomatoes at someone and then they have to take the place. Wide. Oh, well, there seems to be quite a bit of fluorescent pink this year. And one of the problems is it's quite difficult after a while to tell the good stuff from what I would call the novelty acts. I mean, I could almost end up looking at disco balls all day. There's something calming about the disco balls. They spin and spin, and I spin and spin. And I'm going a bit art blind. And how about floor blind? The floor by Korean artist Koo Jong-ah, I think that's correct, throws everything else into this gallery, the Pilar Curious gallery, into a strange, unnerving and headache-inducing fluorescent blur. Ah, respite. There's nothing more calming than a guinea pig. And this series of photographs by the British artist Josephine Pride, who a trillion years ago I taught at St. Martin's. I feel like a guinea pig, but you want to just have a rest with one. They're so unfazed by the fair. The trouble with art fairs is that there's just so much stuff. Frieze London, and then Frieze New York, and now the new Frieze Masters, again in London, seem to have changed really the nature of art fairs a little bit. There are far more artist projects, as well as, you know, naked commercial selling. And the quality, especially with Frieze Masters, is really very high. Of course, there are gimmicks and silly things. I certainly hope that Frieze Masters, along with Frieze itself, which is now 10 years old, do last. You know, the big change is that it's okay to be an artist now. People used to laugh at artists and think that it was a crazy, useless profession where nobody made any money. Of course, only a very small percentage do make lots of money, but I think there's a, if not a growing respect, then a grudging acceptance of the role of the artist, which didn't seem to exist even 20 years ago.